Colleagues, we have already formed a quorum and it's already the appointed time. So let's get started. This is the Bills Committee on Air Pollution Control Amendment Number 2, Bill 2013. And first thing to do is to elect our chairman. And under House Rule 22, we have to invite nominations for chairman. We have to have one member nominating, and then at least one member will have to second, and then the member being nominated will also have to accept the nomination. Mr. Peter Charles Mock, I'd like to nominate Mr. Kenneth Leung. Any seconder? Thank you, Dr. Leung Ka-Lau. All right, thank you. Both members attending agree. Mr. Kenneth Leung, do you accept the nomination? Yes. Any other nomination? If not, then I declare that Mr. Kenneth Leung has been elected chairman of the Bills Committee on Air Pollution Control Amendment Number 2, Bill 2013. Mr. Leung, please come over to chair the meeting. Members, good morning. Do we need to elect a deputy chairman? All right. So let's do away with the deputy chairman. And we have some government officials highlighting the salient points of the bill for us. So let's invite them to join us. Good morning. Before we start, members, any interest to declare? All right, none. Then let's invite the administration team to walk us through the salient points of the Air Pollution Control Amendment Number 2, Bill 2013. Well, Chairman, let me briefly talk about the background and also the reason why we have to move this amendment. All right, for asbestos, it's already a confirmed carcinogen, and you can contract asbestosis, lung cancer, and other diseases. And under our law, it's already banned to sell and transship certain types of asbestos. They include blue asbestos and also brown asbestos. It's about how we're going to deal with works involving asbestos and also asbestos waste, and those are dealt with under the APCO and also waste disposal ordinance, as asbestos has potential health risks or hazards, and worldwide there are already a lot of substitutes for asbestos, and in other countries, as we can see, for example, in the UK, in Australia, and in the EU, and also in South Korea, they have already banned the export, the use of asbestos. It's not just confined to blue and brown asbestos, and in order to further protect public health, we are proposing this APC amendment bill, so that the scope of control would be extended to all forms of asbestos in order to better protect public health. And of course, in doing so, transshipment will also be banned. In order to move this amendment, we have conducted extensive consultation, including those affected trades, the labor sector, some green groups, some chambers of commerce, and even the logistics sector. So we have conducted extensive consultation with these stakeholders, and they all supported that. And for some labor groups and also from the healthcare sector, all along they've been asking us to take early steps to enact this piece of legislation, and we would also like to do it as soon as possible so that we can implement those initiatives as soon as possible. would like to move on to clause-by-clause examination within this Bills Committee as soon as possible. With the passage of this bill, will be gazetting the commencement date in the Gazette as soon as possible so that we can have a comprehensive ban on asbestos as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Mock. All right, 10 minutes each. We do have enough time for everyone. So everyone will have 10 minutes. Dr. Kenneth Chen. No kidding. Please do not switch off my microphone today. Thank you, Chairman. All right, I'll be the first to speak. Please do bear with me. Well, of course, I support this bill because in principle, we all know the health risk posed by asbestos, and as far as the WHO is concerned, we should enact legislation to ban it as soon as possible. So first of all, I'd like to express my support for it. But then in the meantime, I'd also like to listen to the response from the administration on several issues. Number one, I understand that within the Chinese medicine sector, they do use asbestos in proprietary medicine, and you also said that you would be taking into account the needs of the Chinese medicine sector as to how that should be used. So can you tell us what exactly is their demand, and under what circumstances will TCM practitioners be allowed to use products containing asbestos? And is it true that the risk posed to the public is under control and public health would not be at risk? Of course, for the sector's needs, we understand that, and some sectors might also understand that, but then for the public, so what's the impact? Would that be okay to them? And secondly, with regard to the risk of asbestos, they have been confirmed, and of course it's not just about the use of it for import and also transshipment. They will also be banned under the bill. But then as far as Hong Kong is concerned, well, some of our buildings did use asbestos, and there are quite a large number of such buildings. I remember there was also a written question asked by a member during this term, and the administration has already given a reply. I've also asked this. All right, assuming that in private buildings, if they have used material containing asbestos, of course, the private developer would have to be responsible for the management and so on. And according to the administration, so long as they have not been disturbed, the risk would be acceptable. The risk would be low. But then this is an assumption, assuming that everything will be okay. But then for buildings containing asbestos, have you conducted any regular checks on them? And have you offered any assistance to private management responsible for running buildings containing asbestos in order to ensure that public health will be safeguarded and the public's right to know will be safeguarded? Because as a layman, how can I know that it's safe? And also when I go in and out of the building, how can I know, or how would I know that the building contains asbestos? So can you come clean on this? And also can you make a pledge or undertaking that is after the enactment of this bill, you would not be allowing people to go scot-free, allowing asbestos to be out there affecting public health? Mr. Mock. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Chen for his support for this bill. On the 2 points that you raised, number one, with regard to the risk posed by asbestos when it's used in Chinese medicine, well, is it really safe? Well, in coming up with this amendment bill, we have been working very closely with the DFH on this because, after all, they are the experts in this field. They have also met with the Chinese Medicine Council of Hong Kong, and in the process, according to their advice, they told us that with regard to proprietary Chinese medicines with tremolistum and actinolithium, well, consuming such products would be okay. And as I just said, the DFH consulted the Chinese Medicine Council for its views. So that's the conclusion or the advice that we have got. And maybe I can also share this with you. Well, some people are also concerned that if they consume such medicine containing asbestos, is it okay? Is it safe? And according to the DFH reply, I think that's consistent with the advice that they have given us. And according to the International Agency for Research on Cancer, with regard to studies on colon cancer and rectal colonic cancer, well, there is no evidence to prove that consuming medicine containing asbestos would cause cancer. And also, according to potable water standards, well, for the population consuming or drinking potent water containing asbestos, there is also no evidence to show that such water sources would be carcinogenic. So there is no proof or evidence to show that potable or asbestos for consumption would be carcinogenic. So these are the experts in the field, and this is the advice that they have given us. So as far as Chinese proprietary medicine containing trimolidine and also actinolidine, whether or not it's safe to consume such products, well, if it's proprietary medicine, it's okay. It's not hazardous. So the bill has already fully reflected their views. What about the second point? Well, on buildings, well, one important aspect of this is if the owner has a building containing asbestos, as we all know. All right, what is asbestos all about? It's like wavy asbestos tiles, and the owners should know that he has asbestos in the building. And in installing such materials in the building is like what you said. You will have to make sure that it's undisturbed, and the responsibility rests with the owner. So it's like the regular maintenance of the building is the duty of the owner. But of course, on the part of the administration, we also have the duty to inform the owners or the landlords and also the public as to the risk posed by asbestos to them. That's why all along, whether or not it's in the form of leaflets or even on our website, we also have some information informing those concerned as to how they should deal with asbestos. In particular, if it's about demolition of buildings containing asbestos, you will have to hire professionals to do it. So we do provide such information on our website and also in our leaflets. And if there is large-scale demolition works underway, then we will take the initiative to approach the owners incorporated and also for village houses and so on. So we'll inform them as to how they should deal with the relevant works in order to minimize the health risk posed to the public. So that's what we have been doing. And we are more than happy to listen to your views so that we would know how we can improve our education and publicity efforts. Yes, a quick follow-up. 2 questions. From the reply by the administration, I'm grateful that you're able to tell us that, you have got scientific evidence to show that if you consume asbestos containing material or water is safe. But then would you require them to put on the label that the products contain asbestos? That's point number 1. And number 2, is it that only Chinese medicine would use asbestos? How about Western medicine? So I'd like to know a bit more about this, because it involves the use of asbestos as a form of medication. Would the public be aware of such risks? And at least they should be informed so that they would know what they are taking. And for landlords and also owners and how they should deal with buildings containing asbestos. You're supposing that everyone would know about it. But then let's say if I am a tenant of a building which was built in the 80s, and if I ask the landlord, he might not know it at all. So you're assuming that the landlord would know it. That's why they would know how they should do their maintenance works. But then if the situation is as simple as that, then we would not have had so many problems with regard to building management. So legally speaking, they are supposed to know. But then can the administration act as a gatekeeper so that you can point out exactly where we can find asbestos, and at least you can also come up with a checklist so that in carrying out maintenance works, at least for the users, the landlords, and also the tenants, that they would be able to monitor the situation so that they would also be able to help out if there is a need. All right, they might say that the asbestos has not been disturbed, but then at least we might need the assistance from the administration or the department. I understand that this is not the purpose of the bill, but then that has given rise to some public concern about the risk posed by asbestos to public health and safety. That's why I think it doesn't harm if you can do a bit more in order to allay public concern. Can that be done?
Will you also answer the first question? Yes, I will answer the two questions in one go. Yes. First of all, as I have mentioned just now, Chinese medicine is actually supervised and monitored and controlled by the Chinese Medicine Council of Hong Kong. And we will have to go back to them as well as to Medical and Health Department for more information concerning Western medicine to give you that answer. Now, as for buildings, if we are worried about materials or building materials containing asbestos that had been damaged, well, if we're talking about the corrugated panels containing asbestos, the damage there can be easily observed. The landlord or the tenants will be able to easily observe any damage on corrugated panels containing asbestos. But for public hazard that we're talking about is really the kind of materials, so asbestos-containing materials that may contaminate the environment. And we are exactly talking about these corrugated panels containing asbestos, which can be easily observed if there should be any damage. So through public education, we will be raising the level of awareness. And we have work to do there still. We will proactively go to Owners Association to do the education. I understand that not a lot of people are alert to this kind of hazards, but if there should be any demolitions, then they should know about the potential hazards. So we will be proactively going to the landlords, to the owners of flats, to the owners corporation, Incorporated Owners Association, to educate them. Mr. Chan Ha Kan, please. 10 minutes. I have 3 questions, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'm in full support of this amendment. In the last panel, there was actually a very thorough discussion of the same subject. And I remember most of the members were in support of this. That there was a question raised at the time, and that is they worry that there are certain transshipments business and entrepot business, and they worry for asbestos, which may be passing through Hong Kong, that is on way for transshipment out of Hong Kong, whether they will also be caught by this ordinance. As an additional question, for transshipments of asbestos, under the law, are there any requirements for, let's say, signage or anything to provide the people or laborers moving the asbestos information about what is contained therein? A further question to that still is the duration of stay in Hong Kong for the asbestos-containing material. Is there any requirement as to the maximum number of days or time that the material can be in Hong Kong? In fact, for some of the European countries and other countries, they have actually strict rules against transshipment of asbestos and any existence of asbestos in their borders. Well, let me just explain. We allow the asbestos to pass through the territory, but not for transshipment. Let me just explain. In the first scenario, the asbestos is actually placed in the ship, and the ship actually, the material is not released into the territory. It does not go on shore, and it is not released in Hong Kong. But for the latter, transshipment, the cargo containing the asbestos is taken onshore, and they may be placed onto another ship or maybe onto the same ship and then exported therefrom. So in the latter scenario, there would be certain risks. In protecting public health, we may have to consider certain industries, for instance, whether this may adversely affect them because it is a part and parcel of their business, this transport of asbestos. And I do remember that there were members who urged us to go to the transport and logistics industries and professions to ask for their opinion on exactly that point. And we have done exactly so. We have gone to the trade and the associations, and they are not in objection of this. And in fact, this kind of transshipment business is dwindling. There is actually no objection to this kind of treatment as we proposed. And in fact, this is the better way of handling it rather than to just put up signage concerning the containment of asbestos. Does the government have any information or data concerning the business of transshipment and import-export of asbestos? Yes, we do have import-export figures. But perhaps we will give you a paper after the meeting to provide that information. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not have any special views on the legislation as such. Asbestos is indeed a hazard, and it should be properly controlled, so I have no problems with that. But in fact, the asbestos is very often used for paneling of balconies or rooftops. And if at the time of demolition, special experts will have to be engaged to oversee such work, my question is, from the proposal of demolition plans to the completion of the demolition, is there any requirement as to when that had to be finished, the entire process? Say, for instance, if there should be any demolition of asbestos-containing materials, there should be a limit to the time that the demolition should be completed. Otherwise, it may be discouraging to the tenants in their desire to demolish these materials. And the APCO requires engagement of registered qualified professionals to conduct demolition work. I would like to know whether the costs concerned is reasonable. Let me raise an example. For example, asbestos coils have to be removed from the insulation of hot water pipes. And the costs, as quoted by the registered qualified professionals, do not seem to be in line with the scale of work. So if the demolition attracts such stupendous cost, an unreasonably high cost, we really do not want to see this as a deterrent for demolition. But of course, we do not want to see asbestos continue to exist in our environment. But we cannot simply say that demolition is the duty of the landlord. But at the time of installation, it was not illegal, the asbestos as a material. But given time, we have reason to have the landlords remove them. Exactly. In the demolition or removal of asbestos-containing material, they will need to, that is, the landlord will have to engage registered qualified professionals to conduct the planning work and also minimize the any environmental hazards stemming from the demolition. Now, you asked whether there is a time frame prescribed for the planning to the actual completion of demolition. Well, it depends on the case, but really I should want to go back to the office to see whether I can come up with certain cases and their prescribed time frame for your information. And further, concerning costs, different works, different demolition projects will attract different costs. The market will decide what the costs should be. Where there is demand, there will be supply, and a balance between the two forces will be reached. So it is not up to the government to set the price. And really, the government will not be able to have all the information concerning the cost components in such demolition work. Mr. Chairman, I am concerned about costs for demolition because we are putting up a law to say that landlords are to demolish and take down such materials. And it seems that we are providing business to certain types of companies. Perhaps at least the administration can give us information about the number of qualified professional firms in existence now and the costs that they charge. Because we are, in a sense, by passing this bill, providing a special benefit to a sector of community, and whether they charge a reasonable cost or price is something that we should be concerned about. Do you have that information? Mr. Chairman, as I have mentioned just now, the cost or the price should be set by market. But I understand Mr. Wu, and I agree that these qualified professionals seem to be the only people who can take up this kind of demolition work. And for such qualified persons or companies, really, we are looking at their technical capabilities, whether they are indeed qualified to do such work. We do not set a finite number as to the registered qualified professionals. We do not have a number as such. We do not have a list as such. But we welcome anybody who has the technical qualifications to become registered qualified professionals. And thereby we are not distorting the market. We are not allowing anybody in charging exorbitant fees. And in the register of qualified contractors, there are nine such contractors, and the information is also on the website. If necessary, I can provide that information to members for information. Do you have pricing information? Mr. Chairman, because the price is set by market, we do not have that information. But we will go back in any case. If we do have certain data concerning price, we will come back to you on that. But really, the market is setting the price. We are allowing the market to do so. And whoever has a capability will be able to conduct that work. We do not set a cap to say that we only allow that many people or firms in the register. Mr. Mok said that there are only 9 such firms.
So it's relatively small in number. Can you provide us with some information telling us that during the past few years, for example, have there been new entrants? And also, are there any entry restrictions that might not be tangible restrictions, but then if there had not been any restrictions at all, how come there are only so few registered contractors? Well, this might have nothing to do with the bill under scrutiny, but then when owners have to deal with asbestos under the law, then could there be problems in relation to our legal system resulting in them not being able to get registered personnel to do the job? Yes, I can supply the information later, but then what I'd like to say is, as far as asbestos is concerned, so long as it remains in an undisturbed form, there might not be an urgent need for us to remove them or dismantle the building. But then if you have to remove it, then you will have to be very careful about the works procedures. That's why we do not have many such contractors available, and probably we don't need that many. That might have to do with supply and demand. But then in any case, I will be happy to provide the information after the meeting. But then in regulating unauthorized building works, we are actually tightening up the regime, and that has to do with the regulation of UBWs as well. If we do not allow as many contractors to enter the market as possible, then in the future, when we try to roll out the program on removing or clearing UBWs, that might also render the whole thing very expensive. Next, Dr. Leung Ka-lau. Thank you, Chairman. I don't know if the administration has received it, because we have received a submission from a worker group. So can we give a copy of that to the administration so they can also give us a formal reply? And that's a submission from the Working for the Protection of Workers' Health. So at least that should be put on record. So are you referring to paper number CP-1222-03? All right, that's a Workers' Health Center, and they have also raised a number of concerns in their submission. Is related to Chinese medicine. I'd like to clarify this. Well, under the current bill, it says that for proprietary Chinese medicine, if they use that in the ingredients, that's okay. But is it really okay? And also the DFH said that for asbestos for consumption, there is no evidence to show that it's carcinogenic. But then according to the Workers' Health Center, sometimes these people would just cut up the tablets for consumption, and also in the course of production, when they use asbestos as raw materials, those workers might be affected. So at the moral level, even if you ban it here in Hong Kong, but then in the place of origin, what if workers have to have contact with asbestos in the production process? You also talk about colon or rectal cancer, but then here we are dealing with lung cancer. It may take years for people to contract or develop cancer, and we have also been told that even if you come into contact with asbestos now, it will take you years before there will be display of symptoms. So there is a question being asked here with regard to the Chinese Medicine Council. Have they said anything about the use of asbestos in Chinese medicine? How important is it? For example, are there any substitutes? And also, is that extensively used in Chinese medicine? Because, well, when it comes to regulation of Chinese medicine, All right. Sometimes we also regulate tiger products, and we've been told that there are substitutes. That's why, even if you do not use tiger bones in Chinese medicine, it's okay because there are substitutes. So, can you tell us more about this? Administration. Yes, we have received from the Secretariat this submission. It's a submission from the Working for the Protection of Workers' Health. It's from Dr. Zhao Wing-sun. And we have also passed this on to the DFH. And they have also reiterated their advice to us. I think we can also provide a written reply afterwards. Yes, as Dr. Leung said, well, in Chinese medicine, we often talk about the two types of asbestos. They are banned from import into Hong Kong. But then, what we're talking about here is that they are already in a finished dose form. These two forms of asbestos are tremolithium and actinolithium, and the DFH, after taking into account the advice from the Chinese Medicine Council, we have put in place the arrangement under the bill now. All right, for such Chinese medicine, if they have been approved by the Chinese Medicine Council for import into Hong Kong, then they will be allowed into Hong Kong. They will not be banned. That's the reason. So can I clarify this with you first? All right, they've already been formulated in a finished dose form, but then how about the raw materials? So the ingredients will not be allowed into Hong Kong. So can I check it out with you? Well, is it clause 82? Well, in a clause-by-clause examination, we can go into the details. So it's under 82 bracket 4. So is which page? C1626. C1626 or C1627 in the English version. 82.4. Well, Section 80 does not prohibit any exempted person for a proprietary Chinese medicine from supplying or importing or causing or permitting the supply of or import of asbestos-containing material that is the proprietary Chinese medicine. Apparently, there is no ban on the import. Well, under 82 bracket 3, well, please note the wording is Chinese 82.3, all right, you do not ban proprietary Chinese medicine, but then 82.4, apparently even the raw materials are not banned. Have I understood it? Have I got it wrong? Because somebody has raised his hand. All right, Dr. Leung, shall we ask our legal advisor to take a look? Well, we have not moved on to the clause-by-clause examination. I'm asking about the policy. I'm asking if they ban the import of the raw materials. So can I ask the legal advisor to explain this part to us? Am I coming through? Sorry, Chairman, can I explain that further? 82.4, actually the emphasis is on the persons exempted or the exempted person. Well, under the Chinese Medicine Ordinance, Cap 549, it talks about exempted persons. Under certain circumstances, they can import certain materials. And my understanding is that they would only be allowed to use the materials for research. So 82.4 is about those people. It's not about medicine for consumption. So please refer to Cap 549. All right? Because for raw materials, well, that has been banned. They are not allowed to import such materials into Hong Kong. Can I ask a follow-up question? Well, for exempted person, what's the definition? Is it narrowly defined as to who these people are under CAP 549? Yes. So can you give us some examples? CAP 549. Chairman, please give us a little time so we can go back to CAP 549 and get that out. All right. How about the other two questions? Are they substitutable? Are there any substitutes for them? And also, how about those workers in the place of origin? What about their health? Would they be exposed to health risks? Well, in the place of origin, they have relevant legislation to regulate the situation, and it's also beyond Hong Kong. That is, our legislation cannot have jurisdiction over them, and of course, they also have industrial safety legislation to regulate the production of such medicine. But then, under Hong Kong's legal regime, the legislative purpose is to extend our regulatory regime so that all forms of asbestos can be banned in order to protect public health and also the stakeholders' health. Any further questions, Dr. Leung? Well, for Chinese medicine, are there any substitutes? Can they not use them? And also, to what extent is it being used? Chairman, I think we'll have to go back and check with the Chinese Medicine Council because, number one, if they have substitutes, then there is no need for any exemption. And if they are only using very small amounts, then of course probably we may not need to regulate it at all. I think the Chinese Medicine Council would have taken into account all the relevant factors. All right, I've asked a host of questions. You may have to do some homework before you can reply that. So you would also have to make sure that you do have literature to back you up, and because you've also quoted several dozen references. So in the response, you will have to make sure that you are backed up by literature. So please give us a written reply, and then I'll see what I might wish to ask further. Ms. Sito, in fact, for the Workers' Health Center, they have given us a few submissions, and they are also very good reading materials. And Dr. Leung also asked about this, and I'd like to ask this. Can you also respond to that? In the first submission, CB bracket 1, 222 bracket 03, in the second paragraph, they talk about enforcement issues amongst different departments. One is the EPD, another one is the Labor Department, and it's about the fact that there is no ban on materials or instruments containing asbestos. So I'd like to know what exactly these are. And also the Workers' Health Center also asks, in the end, which department will be the law enforcement agency. So can you respond to the submissions made by the Hong Kong Workers' Health Center? Well, you're talking about a full ban. Of course, I'm in favor of that. But then there are also many exemptions under the law. I'm concerned that these exemptions might be opening a floodgate. All right, supposedly you're coming up with this piece of legislation in response to international trends, but then in reality you may not be able to do much about this, because when there are major projects, yes, they are not going to use it, but then how about smaller projects? If you ban it altogether, then will they have difficulties in meeting your requirement under the law? You also talk about well, Clause 83, you have this exemption from Clause 80, and they are very loosely worded, because under A, it says that if the authority is of the view that there are justifications, but then there is no mention of what these justifications are, there is no description at all. So apparently the authority will have very extensive discretionary power, and B also says that would be unlikely to lead to a health risk to the community. So when it comes to the community, I'll have to put it to Dr. Leung. All right, there was no community outbreak last time when there was this SARS outbreak. So what do you mean by health risk to the community. So is it that the ordinary man on the street will have to be affected, or are you talking about the neighborhood, or are you talking about the workers concerned? You will have to be very clear about this. In fact, in the background paper issued by the Secretariat, they also refer to what was discussed during the last term, and we talk about the exemptions, for example, small quantity, and so on. But then here is totally silent. So we are concerned that by the time then the authority will be able to exempt whatever he thinks fit, and we have no way to question his decision. So please do elaborate on this. And also, for justification supporting this approach, you will also have to explain that a bit further in the bill, or else it's a bit too abstract.
Perhaps the administration and the legal advisor can help us along. I know the legal advisor is not feeling well today and really cannot speak up, so I will refrain from asking her to respond. But so that's 83, and there's another point, and the exemptions. And I see that I'm looking at 78 now. There is a bracket 2 added. 78 bracket 1b. That is 78 bracket small letter b. The existing drafting is different from the original. I'd like to know from the administration why you need to do this amendment. And also, after this, what are the defenses? What are the difference in the defense for a person charged? And I see here that that the person could not have reasonably known of the presence of asbestos. What does it mean by could not have reasonably known of the presence of asbestos or asbestos-containing material? That's also in the Chinese and the English. I do not know whether this is the right way to draft this. I would like a paper from the administration to compare the Chinese and English versions of Clause 78. How are they different and why they are different? Yes, Mr. Mock. First of all, on defenses. Yes, we are happy to provide the explanation and the papers. The wording, in fact, is more or less the same as Clause 80. Such exemption is warranted, and it is unlikely to lead to health risk to the community. That's a kind of wording that we're using. I understand Ms. Sit Ho's concern. For example, can this be supported? For instance, in the consideration whether there are other replacement materials that can be used other than asbestos. That's one consideration. And second consideration is that it does not pose a health risk to the community. The wording here is really the same as 80 bracket 1. So you do not have to worry. It is the same as the original drafting. And the two main consideration points are as described just now in providing the exemption from Section 80, that is. Perhaps the lawyer can provide us more information on the amendment of 78 bracket 2. Now, as for why the amendment and the wording, I will have a paper to explain that later. But the main reason is really the original drafting in the original legislation has the same intent as the present one. But we just want to make it very clear, spell it out for all to see, that the person bringing the case to the court will have to provide the evidence. And that's why we have just spelled it out. But for the detailed explanation, I will provide a paper. Mr. Chair, if they were the same, then you don't have to add all that language. Compared to the original 78, this is a lot longer. I do not know whether this is appropriate or whether this is fair with the new edition. If you can give us a comparison between the old and new drafting, that would be good. Or wording. 80 bracket 1 you refer to, Mr. Chair. The new amendment 81 refers to transshipment. But I was asking you about exemptions. Well, actually, I should have said 80 bracket 3. No, it is 83. It is clause 83. Ms. Sitho talked about exemption just now, and you said the supervision for the exemption. Let me just go to the draft to find out exactly which clause we're talking about. You talk about 83, but you said 80 bracket 3. No, I talked about both 83 and also 80 bracket 3. You said 83 bracket 1. You were referring to exemption. I'm saying 80 bracket 3. The exemption stems from the existing legislation. The wording in 80 bracket 3, the language is lifted that from 80 bracket 3. It is the same drafting as in 80 bracket 3. Oh, so you're talking about the original. You're talking about the original version. Yes, yes. I'm sorry. I was looking at the new one. Now I get it. No, we will have a paper to explain, but I'm just pointing it out to your attention now. Mr. Poon Chee Ming? I don't need the 10 minutes allotted to me. I also support the two bills. So as to provide more protection to public health. For the worker center submission to the LegCo concerning the use of asbestos and the education and publicity by the government to the public concerning asbestos use, they submit that it is insufficient because we are talking about tens of thousands of rural area small houses as well as old buildings, which may contain such materials. Will there be a territory-wide register of buildings containing asbestos so that at the time of handling and demolition of such buildings, the people are in the know, including the workers? And it has been mentioned just now that the disease which may be caused by asbestos may only emerge 40 to 50 years from now. So is there a register of these buildings? Mr. Mok? Yes, concerning a register of buildings containing asbestos material, I would want to, on this subject, reiterate a point, and that is, for materials containing asbestos, if the asbestos is or the material is in good form and there there is no damage and it is fully contained in the materials enveloping the asbestos, there is no hazard if the condition is good. Apart from corrugated panels with asbestos, there may be asbestos material or asbestos-containing material inside the building as well. If we are to come up with a register, we will have to go into premises and do investigations, etc. And this is a huge amount of work, and it will relate to third-party information, private information, which may have to be disclosed if we are to do this. The implementation would be very difficult. How can we go into premises to do detailed investigation in order to come up with a register or list? What is most harmful to the public is the panels, the corrugated panels containing asbestos. As you have all mentioned just now, on rooftops and etc., we all see that they exist. So our focus is really to publicize to the public that if there are any asbestos-related materials being handled, how they can conduct the work so as to minimize a hazard caused to the community. That is the focus of this legislation. Perhaps you think it would be difficult to implement, but I think this is very important to protection of the rights of the people, their rights of knowledge, and then rights to information and their rights to be protected. We are looking at some very old buildings, and if you can accumulate the data and information as to what buildings, perhaps the buildings even around us, contain asbestos, and perhaps they are in good condition now, but at some point they will be damaged. And if so, they will cause hazards to the community health. Well, I note that point. If we can have a platform, yes, we can build a platform, but on the other hand, it is in reality impossible to implement. We are talking about a huge number of buildings, and if you are to do such very large-scale investigations or inspection, and if the inspection cannot be comprehensive, cannot be done unto each and every one of the buildings, it is a faulty register. But when we talk about the panels containing asbestos, they are easy to see. We can spot them. Second round, Chen Ka-lok. Anybody else who would want to ask questions in the second round? Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, on Chinese medicine and asbestos-containing material in buildings. Again, follow-up questions on these 2 points. Dr. Leung asked some very good questions. I understand that there need to be certain exemptions. For example, if there should be a Chinese medicine research center at the university, of course, they will have to handle these materials. So we may or may not want to control such research works. But exactly because of that, I do not want to use my subjective view and put that onto the discussion. Perhaps in the next meeting, in our discussion of the legislation, the government will be able to give us more information on CAP 549. For instance, what type of buildings would have these asbestos-containing material and how these material are to be handled or demolished. Yes, because CAP 549 is mentioned there herein, so this is really pertinent. Now, there were other questions asked. Now, Mr. Mok was saying, yes, we can very easily spot these panels, and if they're damaged, we can easily see that, and if there is any damage, we can find the professionals, the registered professionals to handle them. It seemed, I was really relieved when I heard that answer, and I thought, you know, all you have to do is to walk around and do some inspection, look for corrugated panels, let's say in the rural houses, the Spanish-style buildings, and we look at those, and we will be able to spot right away. But not so, I just discovered. Mr. Mok said that there are asbestos-containing materials inside buildings, and we cannot very well spot them. And therefore, it is impossible to do the inspection comprehensively and build that platform. Now, given that, the main point is not whether the public perceives a government to have done some work, but rather whether the hazard posed by asbestos is really eliminated. Now, every time you give us an answer, I learn something new. Perhaps you don't have the solution now. We can think about it together. We can put our efforts together to see, for example, we can interview the people in the community. We can talk to various sectors. And well, actually, I have also written to you with a letter saying that there is in Singapore an asbestos-containing dam which is damaged.
So let's say if I go to NT Northeast, I would have no idea as to where there might be asbestos and where we might be affected. I'm not trying to cause panic in the community, but then I think we have to safeguard the public's right to know. So how can we further improve the existing mechanism? Mr. Mok, I think Dr. Chen made 2 points just now. You refer to Chinese medicine. In fact, under CAP 549, I think it's very clearly defined. And after the meeting, we can provide you with a paper talking about who the exempted persons are. Yes, researchers and so on. So we can spell that out more clearly in a paper. And as I just said, well, as far as the public is concerned, well, for the risk that they are exposed to, well, it's about the corrugated tiles. These are things that they might be exposed day in, day out, and sometimes buildings might contain asbestos materials, whether or not it might be used as insulation materials in the pipes and so on. Well, it's possible. But then what we are talking about is how we can ensure that the public will have a very good idea as to where such asbestos might be found. So we can look into that further. But then what I was trying to say is the most conspicuous areas where asbestos can be found would be the tiles, and there would be no difficulty to distinguish this from others. But then for the other areas, we'll be more than happy to look into that. But then the overriding principle is that in the course of preparing this bill, and recently we also received some submissions from certain groups asking us to implement it as soon as possible. We don't want to delay the process of enacting this bill, and as far as possible, we'd like to enact the bill as soon as possible because we don't want to see any more asbestos-containing materials to be imported into Hong Kong, so we have to close the gate first. I think that's very important. As to how we can further improve the existing work on publicity, public education, and so on, yes, we can look into that. That might not necessarily have to be done under this bill. We can also look into that at other forums, for example, panel meetings and so on. But then I hope that the chair and members would understand that. That is, we would like to implement the bill as soon as possible. Yes, Dr. Chen, any further questions? Anybody who would like to ask in the second round? I think for the time being, we have no further questions. Okay. Do we need to hold a public hearing inviting deputations to come and give us their views? Ms. Ho? Yes, in particular, I'd like to invite the Workers' Health Center to come and let us know their views. Because very often the administration would be, the administration said that they would give us a written reply. I think it's also good if we can also hear their views direct. And maybe other trade unions would also like to talk to us. Any further suggestions? Yes, Dr. Chen, I think it's necessary because within the academic sector, if there are researchers, academics who would like to share with us as to how they use asbestos, I think that would also be directly relevant to this bill, and I would also like to listen to their views. Okay, so a public hearing will be arranged. Do we have feasible time slots? These two can be chosen. All right, the Secretariat has given us two possible time slots. December the 2nd, Monday, 2:30. December the 2nd, Monday, 2:30. December the 2nd. December the 2nd. What time? 2:30 p.m. Another date that has been scheduled for another Bills Committee meeting is November the 19th. It's a Tuesday at 2:30. November the 19th, Tuesday, 2:30 p.m. The legal advisor would also like to comment on the points that we just discussed. Over to you, legal advisor. Yes, I hope that you can hear me. I hope that the administration will also respond to this in the same paper in relation to the points made by three members, Dr. Kenneth Chan and Dr. Leung Ka-lau and also Ms. Sit-Ho, so that we can have the administration's reply before we move on to clause-by-clause examination. First of all, with regard to the points made by Dr. Leung and Dr. Chan about Chinese medicine, I understand that the administration will be going back to the DFH to find out more from them. I can also provide you with some further information so that you can have a better starting point in order to have a better grasp of the existing situation. Under CAP 549, with regard to hazardous chemicals control ordinance, that is CAP 595, there is a schedule. And there are certain materials that are not subject to the HCCO. And if those materials or substances, well, 5 of them are asbestos. And they would also include, under CAP 138, Pharmacy and Poisons Ordinance, and also CAP 132, subsidiary legislation with regard to additives, and so on. The administration might wish to take it up with the DFH. That will also provide you with a good starting point. I understand that under CAP 595, Part 2, Schedule 2, in fact, it's not just about asbestos. And on this occasion, as the emphasis is on asbestos, well, maybe the administration can also look at those 5 substances containing asbestos. Other than the Chinese Medicine Council or Chinese Medicine Ordinance, as mentioned in the bill, I also refer to Schedule 2, Part 2. Are there any circumstances that also need to be dealt with? And if there is anything that you need to look at, would you also consider including that in the relevant provision so that there will be better coordination between the different pieces of legislation? Because the target of the regulation, yes, you're talking about 2 pieces of legislation, and the mischief that they are trying to deal with might be different, but then they are both regulating asbestos. That's why there might be a need for us to align the 2 pieces of legislation. And the second point is about Dr. Leung Ka-lau's point about clause 82 bracket 4. Well, actually, under clause 82.4, I think that needs to be read in conjunction with 82.3. 82.3 and 4 can be read together. 82 actually is based upon clause 80 in the blue bill. So I think the framework is correct. And if you look at clause 80, well, in the marked up copy, actually, that would cover two types of materials. Number one, asbestos, and number two, asbestos containing material. And if you can put that in the framework or in the context of the framework, then you see that under clause 80, the application is that 4 and 3 are actually about not banning asbestos containing material that is proprietary Chinese medicine. So it only exempts asbestos containing material that is proprietary Chinese medicine. So with regard to 82, 3 and 4, there is no mention of asbestos itself. So it just, because some of these substances might contain asbestos, but they are not asbestos themselves, and therefore, under 82.4, as referred to by Dr. Leung, well, Section 80 does not prohibit an exempted person for a proprietary Chinese medicine from supplying or importing or causing or permitting the supply or import of asbestos-containing material. That is the proprietary Chinese medicine. So I'd like the administration to clarify this. It just says that there would be no prohibition on the exempted person importing asbestos-containing material that is proprietary Chinese medicine. Does that mean, number one, alright, if it's already mixed with other ingredients and as a result asbestos will not become airborne, then they would not be regulated. But if it's still airborne, then they may not be able to get this exemption. So it's not covered by this exemption. So is that the case? I'd like to clarify this. And secondly, I'd also like to clarify this. That is, if you look at the question raised by Dr. Leung, would that be a situation whereby, alright, for that particular proprietary Chinese medicine in itself is already asbestos, because I don't know about it. I have no idea about this. So they might have to check it out with the DFH. Thank you, legal advisor. Thank you for your very sound advice. And there is a third point to make. Yes, it's about Ms. Ho's concern about the exemption under 83, under clause 83. Actually, clause 83 has also arisen out of 82. That's about the these are the factors to be considered in granting exemptions. And if in the view of the authority, there are justifications to support the exemption, or that the exemption would be unlikely to lead to a health risk to the community, then theoretically speaking, the authority would grant the exemption so that the person would not be subject to Section 80. But then apparently what Ms. Ho meant was, well, actually under 83(1)(a), actually it only says that the exemption is warranted, and B is just a general statement stating that it's unlikely to lead to a health risk to the community. But then when the authority or the person who has the power to grant the exemption, what factors will he have to consider? For example, he will have to consider 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if all these criteria are met, then the authority can grant the exemption. I think what Ms. Ho might be interested in this, and I'm sure Ms. Ho would understand that under the existing legislation, under Section 80, there are already similar exemptions. But then whether or not it's under Section 80 or what is proposed by the administration in the form of the amended Clause 83, there is no expressed provisions setting out the factors to be considered by the authority in granting an exemption. So probably because of probably Ms. Ho is concerned about that. That's why in the later paper to be supplied by the administration, please do try and address those points so that our scrutiny would be smoother. Thank you, legal advisor. Ms. Ho, anything to add? Yes, just one point, Chairman. Well, under 78 about the defense in the bill and also in the old legislation, I think what the legal advisor just said was also relevant. That is, if he is aware that there is asbestos and asbestos-containing material, but then in the new provision there is no mention of asbestos. So can the administration explain to us why, in coming up with the amendment, you have taken out the word asbestos, and why have you only included asbestos-containing material? All right, in English is asbestos, and then under 78B is presence of asbestos-containing material. So why are you only referring to just one instead of two? Because in the original legislation you have both. All right. With regard to the public hearing to be held on December the 2nd, members, if you have any groups in mind or trade unions in mind that you like to meet with, then please do give us the names of those organizations so that the secretary can invite them to come. And also the district councils and also the groups that might be interested would also be invited to come. Any further questions? How about the Workers' Health Center? I think we can invite them. Yes, we'll invite them. So we don't need to inform you that you should invite them. Well, so I have not phrased myself very well. I've not expressed myself very well. All right. I hope you can get a message. Okay. If there is nothing else that members would like to raise, then our meeting is adjourned, and then we'll meet again. Thank you. 唔該晒各位。Thank you.